Thanksgiving is a time that's always been filled with fond memories for me. The one in particular that I will never forget happened a few years ago, back in 2018. I was currently in college in my sophomore year. The semester was going pretty well, but I was eagerly looking forward to Thanksgiving break. At the time, I was living on campus in a dorm room. I was planning on going back to my parents' house for Thanksgiving, which was several hours away. Before I was going to leave, though, my friend Joey told me that he was going to host a party at his house. Joey lived only about 45 minutes from our college. He invited me and said it would be a big first night of break party, and then he would have a huge Thanksgiving dinner party on Thanksgiving. All of my other friends from school were going to go as well, so I decided to go and take a slight detour on my way to my parents' place. The party the first night was pretty crazy. There was a little bit of rain, but it wasn't too bad. We hung out at Joey's place inside and outside, and there were a ton of people there. A lot of them I knew, but some I didn't. The next day, I left Joey's house and continued to drive back to my parents'. I was going to stop by Joey's again for the party Thanksgiving night. I made the drive back, and it was pretty uneventful. I arrived at my parents' house sometime that afternoon. The next day was Thanksgiving. I spent the morning and the early afternoon at my parents' house with family. We ate a huge meal at about 2 p.m., and then by 4, I was stuffed and ready to head back to Joey's house. I arrived there at about 5. Pretty much all of the same friends were back again. Some of them I couldn't believe went home, and then drove back a second time, with it being included. The drive was about 5 hours in the car for me that day alone, but that was okay because I enjoyed driving. Truthfully, it was nice to see all of my friends again. Joey had once again invited a ton of people, and also some I didn't know. This time, there was hardly anybody in the backyard because it was much colder and rainy and even a couple of snowflakes. We stayed inside and were just hanging out and having a good time. The food wasn't ready until probably 7 or 8, though, which was much later than I had eaten at my parents' house. I was still pretty stuffed by then, but I still had some of the bread and broccoli that Joey had prepared. I guess I hadn't really been paying attention, but there was this one guy in particular who appeared to be way older than everyone else at the party. It wasn't a problem because he was pretty quiet and seemed like a nice guy. I just remembered seeing him over sitting on a couch in the corner of the room. I asked Joey who the guy was, and he said he was some guy who showed up at his house and he didn't really know him. I asked him why he let him in, and Joey said that he didn't want to be rude, and the guy hadn't really bothered anybody. He just said that he knew Joey. I suggested that Joey should maybe ask him to leave, but Joey didn't really seem worried about it, so I left it alone. The party went on, and eventually I found myself in a chair in the corner of the living room. After all of that food I'd eaten all day long and the long drive, I was very tired. I decided to take a short nap in the corner. The way the house was set up, I could hardly hear the rest of the party in the other areas, so I actually was able to fall asleep for a little bit. I had my phone in my hand during this time, and I was probably asleep for maybe 10 minutes. Then I heard something, though, and it abruptly woke me up. The noise was really close and startled me. I realized it was a guy I had seen earlier. He was sitting on the couch just a little ways away from me. I saw that he had the TV on with no sound and appeared to be looking at something on his phone. I noticed that he then pressed a button on the small red remote. It made a small beeping noise, then the TV switched to a camera view. It was a camera of the living room over next to me. The guy then glanced over and saw me looking at him. Then he changed the TV back to a regular show. I don't think the guy realized that the sound had been off the entire time. I was really confused, but I asked him if he was doing something with the cameras. He acted like he wasn't aware the TV had even showed that. Then, all of a sudden, his phone started ringing. As soon as he saw this, he got up and excused himself, then walked away and left the house. I was still sitting down in the corner, all of my stuff was still there, and I wasn't leaving. Then I saw that the man had forgotten his phone as he walked out. He had left it on the couch. I got up and grabbed it. Then I went over to the window to see where the guy had gone. I could see him just barely outside of the window. He was crouching down, looking at his phone, and I think somehow speaking into it as well. The guy had another phone. I decided to go over to Joey and tell him everything that had just happened when I found him. He was in the kitchen across the house, but still somehow had not really been aware of much that was going on. I explained everything that had happened, and he went around to the back of his house and checked out the window to see if the guy was there. He actually was, and it looked like the crazy guy was now taking pictures of Joey's house. Joey went outside, and I didn't hear what was said, but I saw the guy leave, and I saw Joey come back inside. We both agreed that guy was probably bad news. Joey ended up staying up pretty late, and I went back to sleep in the chair. Before that, though, I texted a few people from a guy's phone and was able to get his name was Ryan. Then I narrowed down who exactly the guy was. I was able to find him on Facebook. I then Snapchatted a few friends. The link to his Facebook page saying that he was really creepy while I was on my phone. I found on Ryan's phone that he took several photos of random things in Joey's house. I deleted them, but saved a few to my own phone first. Joey said that he would call the cops if Ryan ever came back. That was basically the last interesting thing of the night I went to sleep, and the next morning I was one of the last people to wake up. Some people were gone already, including Joey's dad owned a house up the road somewhere, and he stayed over there a lot. So Joey had left already. When I woke up, there were like 5 friends still there besides me. It wasn't until a day or so later that I told Joey everything else that I had done with Ryan's phone. Joey found a couple of messages. It ended up turning out that Ryan was some crazy guy that I think had mental issues. He sent a couple more creepy messages and randomly did end up coming over to Joey's house and knocking on the door a few days later. When Joey told me this, I wasn't surprised. He was a creepy guy online and even creepier in person. If you enjoy our stories, show some love with a subscribe and a like. It encourages us to make more. Growing up, Thanksgiving was always a special time in our family. The dinners my mom would stuff us with, the amazing lemon or pumpkin pies she would make, the whole place just kind of felt like a Hallmark commercial. Except that there were 8 of us running around. We didn't live near any family we celebrated with each year, so every year we'd drive the 2.5 hours to a select family member's house to spend Thanksgiving. Most times we'd be going to our cousin Adam and Meg's house. They lived in a rural town with a lot of private properties. Their house is very private. It sits on a huge 20-acre plot of land, and it's along a long, unpaved, bumpy road with only a couple other houses like theirs tucked away in trees. So they had a huge backyard with forests surrounding it in all directions. We loved going there because it was like a fun getaway, a place to escape reality for a weekend. Since this was the last time we'd all be together until Christmas, we'd all exchange little gifts with each other. Nothing major or fancy, just funny gifts, joke gifts, and stuff like that. All us kids were up late in the living room, drinking and laughing, up until around like 1 a.m. when people started heading off to bed. I was sharing the downstairs bedroom with my 2 older brothers, Tony and Nick. Everyone had gone to bed, but it wouldn't have been uncommon to be hearing someone walking around upstairs to the kitchen or bathroom, so when we heard footsteps above us, I didn't think anything of it at first, until I realized the footsteps didn't sound like they're coming from upstairs. It sounded like they're coming from outside, heading towards the front door. Then there were 3 slow knocks on the door, and nothing after that. I wanted to wait for someone else to answer the door, but I realized everyone was asleep. Being the only one still in the living room, I walked up to the front door and quietly screamed, "Who's there?" into the door. There was no answer, so I went to Adam and Megan's bedroom and told Adam or Megan that someone knocked on the door and they should get up and answer it. Adam came out to the living room and I told him someone knocked on the door like 10 minutes ago. By now, they'd have been walked away, but Adam still opened the front door to check. He called back to me to come over to him. I looked outside into the dark expanse of land in front of the house. He pointed out into the pitch blackness. I couldn't see what he was pointing at, though. He whispered, There was someone out in the field just standing there. I said I didn't see who he was pointing at first until he started describing what he was seeing. He described that they were wearing an all-black outfit, a black beanie, and had some kind of chain hanging from their neck shining when light would hit it. By this point, I saw who he was pointing at, and the notoriously quiet person I didn't know what to say. Adam called out, "Hello," into the darkness, and that person way out started to move, and I don't mean they started to walk towards us. They bolted it towards us, but from so far away that it took longer for me to run inside than you'd think. Still, I needed to get away from the door fast. Adam followed behind me and slammed the door shut, then brought me to the kitchen where he said he'd call the cops. I heard several bangs on the front door in quick successions. Adam explained to the police on the phone that a man dressed in all black was hanging around their property and was now banging on the front door and wouldn't go away. Adam went back to his bedroom, presumably to tell Megan what was going on, because I heard her gasp all the way from the kitchen. I was still by the kitchen looking down the little hallway leading to the front door, when peering through the window by the door, someone's face was pressed up against the glass. It looked to be a man, but his face was white, like completely white. It couldn't be his actual skin color, I'm telling you. It was too white, like milk or something. He almost instantly noticed me there because of my light gray hoodie that was easy to see, even in the dark hallway. So he started speaking through the glass. It was so muffled, I couldn't understand what he was saying, though. Eventually, he took his face away from the glass, and there was silence, until he started trying to say something through the glass of the kitchen window now. All I heard was, "Can you help me?" And it was very clearly in a distressing tone of voice. That was enough for me to come out from my hiding spot, grab Adam by the sleeve of his shirt, and tell him to come back here and talk to this guy. He asked me where he was. I pointed at the kitchen, but he didn't return to the phone call with the police. We both went to the kitchen window, and Adam asked, "What do you need help with?" He said it in a way that was implying he didn't care about what the answer was, just that it was obligatory. The guy didn't answer, though. He started to walk away into the darkness again. The police car outside of the house would explain what likely just caused him to leave. Adam went to the door and met the officers outside. He explained to them the details of what he experienced, including what just happened. I stayed in the kitchen the whole time while Tony and Nick were still asleep in the bedroom. It was bizarre to me how it seemed like they couldn't be woken up even if the world were ending. Apparently, the police conducted a short investigation just of the perimeter around the house, but came back and said there was nothing, and there was nothing they could do except leave a warning to the man in case he came back. But after that, we went to sleep in the bedroom with the two of them. 5 minutes after laying down, I heard a kind of clicking or tapping under the bed. I looked under and saw, I don't even know, but I screamed at the top of my lungs because the man with the white face was under the bed. Adam came in within seconds to the bedroom, but Derek came into the bedroom a few seconds later too and had most of the fun for us. Police were there one more time that night responding to the incident, except this time they took the man into custody. I remember they asked him why he even did any of this, and he said he was just trying to mess with people. But what was most disturbing to me was the white, pale face that he had. I didn't understand, even shortly after this, until Derek explained to me later on that the man seemed to be under the influence of cocaine or something. That Thanksgiving night, we were too overtired to let it ruin our stay, as after the police took the man away, the excitement was gone, and we were beyond exhausted. The next morning, us and all our cousins and siblings obviously heard what happened the night before, and for the rest of our lives, our family will never forget that. This happened during Thanksgiving around 4 years ago. I was home for Thanksgiving break, sophomore year of college. My parents had just moved across the country to Texas. And for people who are going to ask what town the house was, just outside Archer City. I'm not going to give the exact location for privacy reasons, but they have since moved out of that house. It was kind of isolated. There was a couple neighbors, but not in eyesight. There was a lot of wood surrounding the property, and the neighbors were like a block down the road. Our Thanksgiving dinner was great, and I didn't drink, I just ate a lot, as did everyone there at the table. There was a lot of us, including family friends and such, probably 12 of us at the table. After everyone started to leave or go to sleep, the only ones left were myself and my cousin Alyssa. We had a few glasses of wine each, then decided to go back to my parents' basement to watch a movie. My parents' basement is pretty sick. They have a bar, a little movie theater, a gym, and guest bedroom / bathroom. We watched some movie. I don't even remember what it was. I do remember falling asleep to it. Then I woke up a dray and saw the TV still playing the movie in the Blu-ray player. I turned it off, and that's when I heard some kind of rustling sound. I didn't know from where I was hearing it. It sounded like it could be coming from any room. It wasn't too loud, though. Could it have been Alyssa? I hope maybe she was shuffling around in the bathroom. I got up just to check and went to the guest bedroom. She wasn't there. All that was in the bed was my backpack with my laptop and schoolwork and such. She had gone to sleep before we even started the movie. I knew that, so I didn't think that she would just leave in the middle of the night. I went back to the main floor to see if she went to her bedroom. There was no logical reason she would do that, though I went up the stairs calling her name. She wasn't upstairs anywhere. Maybe she went outside to get some air, creepy as it sounds. I went outside to look around. It's not like I was convinced we had an intruder or anything. I joked for some reason, thought she'd be outside, but then I heard it from the side of the house. Alyssa calling over to me by the window. Well, from under the window, I should say. She was hiding in the bushes closest to the house with her head sticking out. Whoa, I said. But quietly, she told me to come over quietly. I did as she said and asked her what was up. She told me to listen and pointed up at the window. At first, I didn't know what she wanted me to hear. Then I heard a sound of one of the downstairs closet doors being shut, kind of loudly. I immediately whispered, "What, did you leave something open down there?" She said, "No." That's why she came hurrying upstairs to get me. At first, I didn't want to jump the gun any time it had ever happened in the past. That I thought someone was in my house, it usually just turned out to be some innocent explanation. I asked Alyssa to come back inside and downstairs with me, just so we could look together. She was hesitant, but agreed. We went back down to the basement. It was dead silent now. Alyssa and I checked the closet door in the main bar area of the basement. She tried to open it, but it was locked or jammed. I didn't remember this door having a lock. It was just a little supply closet with tools and such. Odds were it was somehow jammed. She tried to push it kind of hard, but it wouldn't budge. Then I went to the other side of the basement. The little gym and bathroom were next to each other. The gym was opened, but the bathroom was locked. I knocked and yelled, "Is somebody in there?" Then I looked under the door through the crack, and I saw it, a person standing next to the door hiding behind it. With whoever it was at least smart enough to realize that I'd see their feet. If they were standing in front of the door, I shot my head back up and led my cousin outside and back up through the back door. We went back to my parents' bedroom and woke my dad up. I told him some person was hiding in the basement bathroom. He got up and looked at me with a mixture of anger and confusion. "Why did you know there was someone down there?" he'd asked. Alyssa tried to answer that question for me. She described waking up half asleep to something sitting on the side of the bed, taking her backpack. At first, she thought it was me, but she realized it was some random guy in her half-asleep state. She didn't find it weird, but eventually she realized it wasn't me, nor should I be touching her backpack for any reason. So she got up to follow the guy. For some reason, he left her backpack on the couch in the main basement section before she stood up and started waking me up. My dad went downstairs with a huge kitchen knife and started yelling, "Get out of his house or he'd kill them." His words, not mine. My dad is kind of nuts and doesn't have much of a regard for the law. My cousin and I watched for a little while, then went back outside to the basement window. Unfortunately, I think they made the guy some time to escape. There is a window in the bathroom for some reason. It's weird. I wouldn't have even thought that he would have climbed out through it, though, until Alyssa and I both saw him bailing out the window and taking off into the darkness, barely visible to the eye. Now came the revealing part of the story of what he took. I led my dad to the window and yelled to him that the guy climbed out through it. He hurried outside, and then I went to the guest bedroom to make sure my cousin's stuff was still there. And sure enough, her backpack was gone. Now I felt like a piece of crap. I didn't step up and grab the guy. When I had the chance, I comforted my cousin in saying it was only her clothes and school stuff, and anything else she could just freeze order or freeze cancel. I hopped online and ordered my cousin the same backpack. Express shipping. We told my dad we'd just deal with it tomorrow, and we went to our old bedrooms. My dad got back about 5 minutes later. He couldn't find the guy. Obviously, the next day, we both went to the professors of the classes, whose work were in my cousin's backpack, and explained to them what happened. They redirected us to some department of the school where we were able to pay to have the textbooks issued again. I think my dad learned a lesson to start locking all the doors in the house. I learned a lesson to always go with my gut and stop waiting until the last second to do the right thing.